Welcome to the Author's Chair with Julia Amante. I have a special guest, author Teresa Keefer today, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. Teresa is an award-winning author of paranormal and contemporary romance, whose novels weave together a touch of everyday life with a bit of magic from other worlds. In addition to that, Teresa is also a clairvoyant medium, which is probably where I'm going to start my questions because I don't
Okay,
know what a clairvoyant medium is.
I'll tell you.
And she likes to travel to Celtic ruins in order to make connections with the spirit world. So, welcome, Teresa. I'm really, really excited to have you here today and to learn all about you and your novels.
Thanks for having me, Julia.
You're welcome. Okay, so let's start. What is a clairvoyant medium?
So, a clairvoyant is able to actually communicate with the spirit world.
Okay.
So, many, many years ago, I didn't know what it was. As a little girl, I used to see a lady in the corner of my room, and my mom always said, "Oh, that's just your imagination." And then as I got older and started seeing them, I knew it wasn't my imagination. And I knew I wasn't crazy. So, I actually made contact with another lady who was a spiritualist minister. She's in spirit now. And she says, "You can do what I do," she said. So it's like once I met with her, it like opened the door up. So I get them all the time now. So
Wow. Wow. How old were you?
when I was little, I was
Yeah.
probably 8 or 9. And that's frightening to a kid.
I was going to say,
I've
weren't you
got a
scared?
Yeah, I've got a book that or a short story that I wrote that started out with that very scene. It's like, "What is that in my corner? That's a lady over there." "No, that's just your imagination." And I knew, back then it's like,
Yeah.
okay, I got a pretty wild imagination, but now not so much.
Well, that would have scared me. I probably would have left the room, crying and
I made my mom sleep. I made my mom sit in the room with me until I went to sleep
yeah.
for like a long time. And it's like,
Wow. What
so
did your parents think about that?
my mom understood that kind of stuff, which was why I'm surprised now that she didn't say, "Well, maybe she's doing this stuff," because she would go and secretly meet with clairvoyant mediums behind my
Okay.
dad's back because he didn't believe in that stuff.
Mm.
Um, to him, it was witchy. It was, you shouldn't be doing that stuff. And to her, she was interested. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but she didn't recognize that from me when I was little. It was just my imagination.
Wow, wow. So did you are all the spirits nice? Like, or did you meet anybody that you were afraid of?
Not, no, no.
That's good.
I've had some very good teachers who have said the key to it is to make sure that your own vibration or your own energy is high enough that you don't attract those types of things.
Wow. Well, that is fascinating. And so how does that affect your writing? So you write, like I mentioned, supernatural novels and romances, right?
Yes, I do.
And so how does that make its way into your stories?
Well, every once in a while, I'll tuck an experience that I've had into one of my stories. I don't do it a lot, but I will give you a sneak peek. I'm getting ready to write my first nonfiction, and it's going to be "No, I'm not crazy. I'm clairvoyant." And I'm just going to kind of compile all of this stuff and then some of the things that I've learned. So that's on the back burner right now, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
coming.
Yeah, that would be interesting because, people like me, I don't know a lot about it. It's interesting, and I like to read like fantasy novels and things, but honestly, I read it and I think this is fiction. This isn't true. Like this doesn't really
It is.
happen,
Well,
right? Yeah,
I
yeah.
used to think that way too, but then I lived it. So, I mean,
Right,
to
right.
actually sit in your room and see a rocking chair start rocking by itself, it's like, okay.
Wow. That's a yeah, no, I think you should definitely write that nonfiction book because it would help people like me who don't know anything about it to really understand what is happening.
Okay, that's my plan. I'm not
Yay.
crazy. I'm clairvoyant. And let's just watch for it. Maybe in
It sounds
2026.
okay. All right. Sounds great. Sounds great. Okay, so let's go back in time. You grew up in Warsaw, Indiana, and you still live there.
No, no, I
And
was born in
you
Warsaw.
don't.
I was born
Okay.
in Warsaw, and that's where my parents adopted me from,
Okay.
was from Warsaw. I live in kind of between I'm south of Fort Wayne, Indiana, and north of Indianapolis out in the middle of nowhere. and probably about an hour from the Ohio state line as well. And I've lived in this area all my life. So
Okay.
I lived in a small town called Wabash, which was south of Warsaw for a number of years, and now I've lived in this area for probably 30 years, except for a
Wow.
period of time I lived in the big city of Indianapolis and hated every minute of it.
So you prefer the rural areas?
I do,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay. And how does that impact? So both your background as an adopted child, were you a young child?
I was 5 days old,
Oh, okay, you're a baby.
a
Okay.
baby.
So maybe that had an effect on you and your writing and or maybe not. So how does that impact your how did that impact your writing and how does the setting that you live in impact your writing?
Well, I generally I haven't really written anything that I've used the adoption part, except
Okay.
I am working on a book now, and it's gonna be a series, and it's called Sunflower Acres, and the main
Wow.
character was adopted as a child and got into an abusive relationship, escaped that relationship, and went and hid, and then her biological mother found her. So,
Um,
without giving too much more information, that's kind of the gist of it. The biological mother finds her and,
yeah.
kind of pulls her out of her hiding situation, so,
Well, that sounds great.
I
That
am
sounds
using
great
it for that,
for
but
that. Yeah, yeah.
that's the first time I've used an adoption type theme.
Yeah, so I have 2 adopted children, and kind of the same. I don't I've used it though. It hasn't been directly adoption, but it's impacted my writing, the types of stories that I write. I write about motherhood a lot. So, yeah, for me, it definitely has impacted, but so, yeah,
So
and so
you
how about,
adopted
like,
well, I'll ask the question, you adopted yours as a baby too?
my son was 6 months and my daughter was 8 months.
Okay,
So, they were not baby I mean, they were babies, obviously, but not, not just 5 days old.
yeah.
So I think that that's impacted them because you have memories, right? For when you're young, whether you know it or not, you have those memories. And so I think it's impacted both of them. And of course, it impacts, the adopted mother as well. So yeah, so it's very close to my heart. I love adoption stories and I love to hear and talk to people who have been adopted. So yeah, so interesting.
Yep,
Okay.
I've
So
always known. I've always known. I don't my parents told me I guess they said I was watching a movie when I was, like, 3 or 4 years old and said
yeah.
and I asked them, "Am I adopted?" And they just told me the truth. So I've always
Wow.
known.
Wow. Wow. I wonder what made you think that or made you even ask that.
I was a curious child. I was a very
Yeah.
curious child, so I can see myself watching a show and saying, "Was I adopted
Yeah.
too?" I could see myself doing that.
Yeah. 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 My kids have always known too. We had, we celebrated adoption day along with birthday and everything because I always wanted them to understand, to know. And yeah, so it's been wonderful. I loved adopting my kids and yeah, it's been a great
I
experience.
think it's great. I think it's great when
Yeah.
people do that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, the other thing that you've adopted a lot of dogs and cats and goats here. So on your website, you have a lot of different animals
I
and
do.
you live in an area where you can have them. Does that come in that part of real life come into your stories?
It does, it does. Got a couple of my stories where, the animals actually talk. So
Oh,
well, they're witches, they talk,
oh,
they've got
yeah.
their special little things. So, in my Wheel of the Witch series, which is gonna be an 8-book series, book number 4, she's actually an animal whisperer, so she actually
Oh,
talks
wow.
to animals.
I like that. I love reading about animals in stories. So yeah. And I've often thought like it'd be cool to hear what they were really thinking, you know?
Well, I've done that before as a joke. I had a little dog named Oscar, and I had him for 13, 14 years, and I lost him a couple years ago now, and he
Mhm.
he was my little buddy. But he had such a cool personality, so I wrote a little short story about him, and it was about how the cat was flirting with him because she was flipping her tail, and so it's a little on the adult side of humor, but
Yeah,
it's kinda
that's
cute,
cute,
and I
that's
think
cute.
I think I posted it on my website before, but
Oh,
it
did you?
was his
Oh, that's
story, and then I wrote the cat's perspective, so I just kind of as a,
yeah,
"Well, let's have some fun here."
that's fun. I've done that, but nothing that I would publish. So I've just written from the dog's
I never
perspective just for the
published
fun
it,
of it.
I just put it on my website. I don't know where if there would be a place for it. Maybe Tales from the Farm or something.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that would be great. It'd be great. So let's talk about your paranormal romances and your contemporary romances. So you actually write a lot of different genres. How difficult is that, and how do you decide? Like, you get an idea, and it's like, oh, this is a paranormal, or this is a contemporary romance. How do you make those decisions?
It just pops in my head. I really don't have a decision-making process. I get an idea and it's like, "Oh, okay." So my very first book that I ever published was a contemporary romance, and it
Okay.
was set it's the Smoky Mountains area. It's one of my favorite places to visit, and it
Mm.
was called Coming Home, and it was based off of a country song called, Strawberry Wine.
Oh, I know that song. Yeah.
You know the song where she goes back home after all these years? Well, that's what that's based off of. So that was my
Wow.
very first ever published story, and somebody liked her one of the secondary characters so well that they wrote me and they said, "Are you gonna write Dixie's story?" I thought, "Yeah, I could." So it ended up being a three-book series called the Possum Creek
Wow.
series, and, so it's about strong women in a small town. So,
And you knew that it was a romance when
I
you thought
knew it
of it.
was gonna be I read Harlequin romances when I was 12, you know? I had parents that they didn't ever censor what I read, so
Mhm.
I've always kind of read above what my age group was
Yeah.
because I started reading when I was 4, so I've always read above that age level thing, and back then, Harlequin romances were clean. There wasn't anything I mean, I don't think they even slept in the same bed back then. They were those bedroom door closed type things, or they just didn't ever get to that point.
Right, right.
So, I've always liked romance, and my very f the first 2 romance writers that I really enjoyed reading was Janet Dailey
Mm.
and Jane Ann Krentz, and then I kind of fell into the whole Nora Roberts books. So
Yeah,
those
yeah.
are kinda like my 3 favorites. So
Oh, okay.
I've always preferred romance.
Yeah, yeah. So when did you decide then that you're gonna move from romance to paranormal?
I don't know. I think it was probably decided for me.
Yeah.
The first paranormal book that I wrote was a vampire, and I was one of those kids that got home from school, and me and my mom would sit down and watch the old Dark Shadows. I'm dating myself
Mhm.
here, but
Yeah.
every day after school, it was the old Dark Shadows and Barnabas Collins, and so I've always had kind of a fascination with that. Well, I got this idea while writing a short story for a creative writing class in college, and it was about a vampire that actually went after the bad guys, and I thought, I can make this into a series." Well, then it went down the more erotic line because, vampires are erotic creatures.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was my first venture into it, and then I thought, I kinda like this because I can just the sky's the limit. Anything I put in there's gonna be believable or not
Right.
believable because it's paranormal. So,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, to me, they're very interesting. Like, how do you but like I said, I don't write that, and I do read some of them, but how do you make them believable? Because, it's fantasy, and you need to me, I would think the ones that I love are the ones that I can relate to emotionally. So even though it's a vampire or a witch or something, there's something that I can relate to as a human being. How do you do that? Like, how do you infuse them with that emotion or, make them
well
feel relatable?
with my New Orleans vampire series, everybody wants to see the bad guy gone.
Yes.
And everybody wants to see the poor little heroine rescued by the hero. So, it starts off where she's looking for her missing sister in New Orleans. Some guy corners her in an alley, and the vampire comes to her rescue. So,
Okay.
he was already on the trail of this sexual predator, and so
Mhm.
he rescued her. Only she was a medium, so he couldn't they affect people's minds and memories, they erase them
Yeah.
or they glamour them or whatever. Well, she couldn't be glamored, so she knew who he was, and she went in search of him then after this all happened.
Uh,
And so he kinda made her, 'cause he was trying to protect her, he kinda made her a prisoner in his condo. So and they go out looking for her sister. So, it's kinda that heroine thing. Dark Knight
Yeah.
comes to the rescue. Vincent's the first book of that series.
Have you read the Save the Cat series on how to
I have
write? Oh,
not.
okay. Well, that's kind of like it's reminding me of that, right? Where the hero saves somebody, like saves the cat, right? But so I think that's probably something that makes your character relatable is that he's saving people. He's saving
He's
the
saving
heroine.
people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He's saving them, plus he's removing the scourge of the earth and takes them to the bayou and feeds them to the after they're done with him, he feeds them to the alligators.
So he's doing double good deeds there.
Yeah, he is. He is doing good deeds.
Now you're also a thriller writer. So you wrote Deadly Vision, which is a
Yes.
thriller, right? So how do you move from to genre, and how do you suggest that writers that want to write in multiple genres do that?
Well, again, this book, it just came to me. It's like, I'm not sure that I like to read just about any genre there is.
Yeah.
With Deadly Vision, it just came to me, it's like, "Oh, what an interesting concept. Girl comes up missing, clairvoyant later on down the road goes looking for her, and in the process, here I live near a small town, and we
Hmm.
know that small towns have all these secrets and all this political stuff going on
Right.
the good old boys club, and I thought, "Well, I could pull that all together in a story," and I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
That's great. It sounds like you just don't limit yourself. When a
I
story
don't.
comes to you, if it's a romance, you write the romance. If it's a thriller, you write the thriller,
Yeah.
which is great.
If a story comes to me, I just sit down. As soon as I get the idea, I sit down and I write the first chapter. So right now I'm sitting with 4 first chapters.
Oh my
Well,
God.
actually more than that, but I'm working on 4 different books right now.
Wow, wow.
So,
So how many books do you write a year? Because 'Cause you've written 29 at this point?
yeah.
Wow,
Um,
that's a lot of books.
I averaged okay, so I published my first book in 2012. It was Coming Home. It was my Possum Creek book.
Uh-huh.
Um, so I think 1 year I published 5, and then 1 year I only published 1. So it just
Okay.
depends. Working full-time and a
Yeah,
full-time job, that kinda limits how much writing time that I've got. So when I have time to write, I do.
yeah,
I used to take my laptop to work, and on my lunch break, I would write, but things have been too busy to even do that the last couple of years. So,
yeah,
all
yeah.
my writing's done when the weekends and the evenings when I'm home, so
Wow, that's great. So you write in the evenings.
in the evenings, the weekends, the holidays. I love
Yeah,
the winter months. I love the winter months when I don't go out in the garden or go out and get in the pool. If I didn't have a pool to float around in and read a book, I could probably sit in the house and write more in the summertime, but I don't.
yeah. Well, you need that time too, though. You need the time
I
to read
I
other
do.
books and
I
yeah,
do.
yeah. Yeah, but
So
I agree. I love the winter months, and in fact, I leave California and I go to South Dakota for as long as I can. So I'm there for part of the winter, and I love it because it's like
oh,
I
you
can't go
winter
anywhere.
in there. You
I
winter
do
in the
because I can write and I can read. Yeah,
so do you get snowed in?
sometimes when I'm lucky.
I know, I know. I wish we would. We haven't had a good snowstorm here since 2014.
Oh my goodness! Wow, wow. Well, it's
That was
Rapid
the
City.
last time
Rapid
we had a real
City.
good snow.
That's a long time ago. Rapid City will get snow and we'll get snowed in for a couple of days, but then it's a city. They clear it all off, and then you're okay.
Yeah,
But it's nice.
I would
I
love
like
to
it.
get snowed in. I would like to get
Yeah,
snowed in for 2 weeks. I've got plenty of food, plenty of firewood. I've got
yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can take all the time to write. So it's wonderful. Okay, so your typical then writing process is you work during the day, you come home in the evening, and you write.
Mhm.
And how long does it take you to get that first draft finished? Well, you're writing 4 books now, but if you're writing just one,
I have okay, so 1 year I did write a full book during NaNoWriMo in November.
okay.
1 full book. I took it as a challenge and I did write it. Trying to think which one it was. I think it was a contemporary, and I already had the idea for it. It was one of my early ones, so I did write
Uh-huh.
Yesterday's Promises, I wrote. in
Okay.
30 days.
Wow.
So, and that was early on, and
Yeah.
I'd like to think that as I've grown with my writing, it's gotten a little bit more in depth and not some of my earlier books, I think sometimes when I look back to me, they're a little bit shallow and not as
Mhm.
descriptive and so forth as they are now.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it takes me longer now.
Yeah, yeah. I think I feel the same way. I do think that my first well, I'm not a very descriptive writer anyways, but it was even less back then. And now I think it comes a little easier. So I think the longer you write, you start to get that rhythm and you start to
Yeah.
feel what needs to be in there. Well, I read online that you do that, that you abandon actually projects so you don't feel that you have to finish them if they're not working.
I've never abandoned one.
Oh,
I just
okay,
have
okay.
taken longer to do it than I might
Okay,
have
so you
something
stop it for
else.
a while and then you move on to something else and then you go back to it?
Uh-huh. Yep.
Okay.
And then, of course, then I have to go back to the beginning and read from the beginning on, so I kinda get back in the rhythm of things.
Gotcha, gotcha.
I've never abandoned a project at all.
Okay,
I
okay.
just have taken a little bit longer to write something because something else was more interesting to me. Like, the reason I've got so many going on now is I was already halfway done with one of my Wheel of the Witch series book 4. I was almost all the way done, and I got stuck. So I thought,
Mm,
"Okay, I'm gonna write something else." So I thought, yeah, it's about time for me to do another vampire novel, and let's make this
yeah,
one a female." So I bought it. I bid on a cover photo and got a lady's picture. She's the perfect vampire looking woman. So I thought,
yeah.
okay, so this vampire is going to join my crew of vampires in New Orleans, but she's going to live in a swamp. And so I started working on that, and then I got the idea for Sunflower Acres. So I started working on that, and then I go to Scotland, and
Wow.
there's also I'm working on a Scottish romance right now, and it's a time travel.
And you don't
And
get confused on what's going
no,
on with the
no, I
wow.
don't. I don't. So while I was in Scotland, we were in Wigton, which is the book capital of Scotland. It's got all these wonderful bookstores. There's like 10, 11, 12 of them in there. I'd gone there for Authors Invade Scotland, and it was in a town called Stranraer or Stranraer, and Wigton was just 30 minutes from there. So I said, I've got to
Mm,
go there. I've heard all about this place. I want to go
ah,
visit book place. And it's true, they've got all these little bookstores, but nothing in Scotland opens until 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. They've got it. The Scottish people have got it down to a science. We don't get up that early. So
yeah.
we were wandering around this little town waiting for these bookstores to open, and there was this little old lady sitting at the books or standing at the bus stop. And of course she was chatty. So we chatted with her and we were talking to her. I told her I was an author, and she said, "Well, I was an author to her." No, somebody else later on told me from one of the bookstores that she also was an author and wrote a book. She didn't share that. She's a little secretive little lady. Well, we gathered from her that her name was Heather, and she told us, she says, "Yep," she says, "when you go up in the Highlands," she says, there'll be the normal light purple heather, the dark purple heather, and then there's the white heather." And she says, "That's the uncommon heather, and that's what I'm named after, is the uncommon heather." So the book is actually called Uncommon Heather, and it's based on
Oh,
this chance meeting with this lovely little lady in Scotland.
yeah.
So,
Wow.
so it's a time travel.
Okay, okay,
So
interesting, interesting. Wow. Yeah, all your books sound so fascinating. So I guess my question, if you were a new author though, would you recommend having so many multiple because what the way I feel about it for new writers is finish that novel you're writing because if you don't, like, it's really easy to get discouraged. Like you said, a block, and the way you solve the block is you start a new story and then you get back to it. But I
mhm.
think when you're a new writer, there's a danger in
I
never going
agree.
back to your story.
It took me 2 years to write my first book. It
Yeah,
took me 2
yeah.
years because and I've always worked full time, so it took me 2
Mhm.
years to write it. But for somebody else starting out, I would say get that first book done so you've
Yeah,
actually got an accomplishment, because once you've
right.
got that accomplishment, it's like, I can do this. This is
Yeah.
something I can do because you need to know that you can finish that and get it
Right.
published and get out there to people and
Right. Right.
understand that, yay, I've published a book. And I think that incentivizes somebody to continue to write more and more.
Yes. 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 Otherwise, there's always that shiny new story, that you want to get to.
Yeah,
So it becomes kind of an excuse not to finish. But no, it's not, I mean, you're obviously with so many books under your belt, you're going to come back to it.
I know I'm
So
gonna come back to it at some point,
yeah,
so
yeah. Let's talk about setting a little bit. Well,
okay,
actually, okay, so let me ask you this question. You said, again, I've, read about a lot of things online and I don't know what's true and what's not, but you mentioned that you like having a bucket list, that it's huge. And every time you cross something off on your bucket list, you add a couple more things.
that's
So
correct.
tell me a little bit about that. What do you do? Is it like traveling? Is it writing more books?
Well, let's see, what have I crossed off my bucket list? Let's go with the last 5 years, okay?
Okay.
So excuse me. So, one of the things on my bucket list was to fly a plane. I
Oh,
would really like to get my pilot's license, but it's very expensive, and it's funny because back in my early 30s, I was scared to fly. My younger brother, the one I grew up with, he was also adopted. He has his own plane, he's got his pilot's license, and I've been up in his little plane, and once you get past that initial scare, it's like, you know what? If I had a pilot's license, I could go from here to there in less than 17 hours.
yeah.
So I did go and do my experimental flight. And so that's something I did cross off my bucket list.
Wow. How exciting.
Yeah. California was on my bucket list, not because I necessarily wanted to see California. It wasn't really that. I wanted to be able to say, I've seen the sunrise over the Atlantic. I want to see the sunset on the Pacific.
Uh,
So that's what
yeah.
I did. So when my daughter lived out there, I went out there to the San Diego area. We stayed in Oceanside, and I actually got
Mm,
to watch the sun go down over the ocean and watch the moon come up. And so I can
yeah,
say that. Let's see, what are some other things?
very cool.
Yeah, Ireland was on my bucket list to travel to Ireland.
Yeah.
Scotland was not. It's funny,
No.
Scotland was not on my bucket list until after I went to Ireland twice, and then Scotland was on my bucket list. So
Wow. Wow.
I'm not sure what's gonna get on there next.
And so do you use these in your stories?
Do
How
I
does that
do.
impact your career?
Most of my books, in fact, all of my books, I've been to the places where they're set.
Okay.
I've been to the place where they're set. My 4th book of my Wheel of the Witch series actually is set in and around Deadwood and
Mm,
South Dakota, and
yeah.
so that's in there. I've written some short stories for anthologies up in that area. Oh, one of my other bucket lists was to go horseback riding in Montana. I did
Oh,
that about 4 or 5 years ago with my oldest granddaughter. We flew into Kalispell. I went and got to
yeah.
Salt Glacier. I got to stand in McDonald Lake where the water is so clear you can stand in water and see your feet at the bottom. So I actually got to go horseback riding up in that area, and that was just amazing. It was an amazing
Yeah.
thing to do.
You sound like a very adventurous person.
I
Do a lot
didn't
of
used to be. I think
no.
what got me the first time I ever went to Deadwood for Wild Deadwood Reads, I
Yeah.
flew by myself. I'd never traveled by myself or anything. I flew from Indianapolis to Denver and rented a car, and I've got a nephew who lives in the Fort Collins area. So
Yeah.
I drove up, I visited with them. The other thing on my list was I wanted to go see the Virginian from the old Virginian movie. So I
Yeah.
actually drove to Wyoming to see the Virginian and then back to Deadwood. And it was so cool because I'd never seen antelope or
Yeah.
anything like that. So the very first time I saw antelope, it's like, I really wish somebody was traveling with me so I could say,
Yeah.
"Oh, look at the antelope." That's the first time I saw buffalo was at Custer. So, yeah, after that initial scare of traveling by myself, I don't mind
Yeah.
doing it by myself now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's great. It's great. Yeah,
and
I've
I've
done
met
some
so many
traveling by
awesome
myself, but not a
people.
lot.
You what?
So I've done a lot. I haven't done a lot of traveling, but I've done some. Like I've driven from California to South Dakota, and it's beautiful. You drive through the mountains in Denver, and it's peaceful. It's nice.
It is. It's kinda cool to
Yeah.
be out. It's kinda like newfound freedom to be out on your own on a trip all by
Yeah.
yourself. It's like you don't have to ask anybody if, "Hey, can you pull over here at this rest stop so I can use the restroom?" You just
Yeah.
decide to do it. And, "Oh, you
Right.
wanna eat at this old restaurant here along the side of the road?" Yeah, you might get food poisoning, but who cares? It's a dive. I wanna go there. So I like doing that now. I really
Yeah.
do like traveling, and I don't
Yeah.
mind doing it by myself, but I've
Well, I
met
think all
some.
these experiences and all these, having a bucket list and having things that you cross off and that you do, I think they are helpful for writing. I don't know if you actually use them, but just an experience or a feeling that you have while you're doing these, I think they do tend to make it into books. I don't know if they make it into yours,
They
but
do.
yeah,
They
yeah.
really do. So, in my, Rowena's song, there's a
Mhm.
scene in there where I think she gets tangled up in some briars maybe alongside of
Yeah.
the road. That really happened to me. Actually I climbed up on one of the stone walls in Ireland along the road so I could see the in a distance, so I could see the, scenery, and my foot got caught in one of the, brambles
Oh.
on there, and I
Mm.
fell right there. I think that
Yeah.
made it in there, and then I met a gentleman at a pub in Dublin, and he kinda made it into my book as an older man because it
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
kind of fit. So he was rather interesting.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be exact, but it's just,
No.
something sparks in your mind when you just go out and you see new things, you experience new things, and yeah, it just sparks stories and it sparks
Yes.
sometimes characters.
Yep,
So,
I've met some characters along the way.
okay, so let's talk about your publishing. So you again, 20 more than 29 titles and they are all independently published, or did
That's
you start
correct.
off as traditional?
Nope, they're
Okay.
all self-published. It's
Okay.
been it's been a long, hard journey of learning on
Yeah.
self-publishing. So, I'm getting better. I don't do it all by myself anymore. Cause when I
Okay.
first published my first book, it looked hideous. The cover was awful. My goal was to get a book out there. The cover was ugly. It was one of Amazon's own prints, and then I got to
Mm,
realizing, I can do my own, and then so I for a while, I did some of my own covers. The only thing I don't do and never have been able to do is my own formatting. It's awful.
mm,
So, now I have a PA who does wonderful book
okay.
covers. I'm gonna shout out to her. Her name is Tess, and she's with Poised Pen, and she does
Okay.
amazing covers. She has a team of other authors that she works with as part of her group. They do editing, they do, formatting. So, the stuff that was so hard that and distasteful for me, like formatting and editing, somebody else
Yeah.
does that for me.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Yeah,
So
I've
that
never done that myself either.
it's
Well, formatting
awful.
now I do, but covers, no way. No way.
Yeah, covers I love doing, but she does a better job than me. So my
Yeah.
the cover of trying to think which one I still have that's one of my own. Probably 4th book of my vampire series, Lone Vengeance, I did that cover. I've got
Okay.
a Western romance, Saved by Luke, I did that cover. But all of the more recent ones, she's done it, so and she's amazing. She does an amazing
That's
job. So let
wonderful.
the
That's wonderful.
expert do it, you know? Let
Yeah.
me just
Yeah,
write a
for
book.
sure.
Yeah.
Have you redone any of the older covers
I
that you didn't
have.
like?
All of my
Yeah.
first covers were
Oh,
redone,
okay.
all of
Yeah.
them. So they were bad. They were when I look back, I've got them here. I've got extra copies. My daughter says, "Well, you ought to put them online and sell them." I said, "No, but I wanna sell those things. They're ugly."
Yeah, yeah. So is that like the biggest lesson that you've learned or advice that you would give a new author is find somebody to do that unless you're an expert? Find somebody to do your cover design and then your
I
editing and
I
yeah,
spend your time writing, um, and that's what I would do, and then find somebody to work with and that can help you with your covers. I've bought a couple covers
yeah.
off of other cover designers, but my
Mhm.
PA does an amazing job, so
Oh, that's wonderful.
why
That's
look any
wonderful.
further?
Yeah.
Well,
But when
now
you
I
find
will
somebody that's good and that you can work with, it's great, you know?
Well, I will tell you, myself and 2 of my local author friends here, we're all self-published. One writes just strictly paranormal. The other one writes, she's written some children's fiction, but she's written more of nonfiction, self-help
Mhm.
type things like that. Both
Okay.
ladies are amazing. We are actually working together to open a bookstore for only self-published authors. So it gets those
Okay.
self-published authors in a bookstore, but we're also going to offer services as well. So for those budding authors that don't know where to start, we know where
Mhm.
to start and we can get you in the right direction. So we're going to offer some workshops. We're going to offer editing services. We're going to offer cover services, formatting services. We're going to
Yeah.
pull in all of our resources and partner with them. We're really looking forward to this. So we're working right now
Yeah.
on a what do they call these? Crowdfunding? I'd never heard of it.
Okay.
So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we're doing an anthology, a
Like,
crowdfunding
what do they
anthology
call
for
it?
a startup.
Yeah, like the GoFundMe type things.
Yep, only they get a book out of it. So you're not just
Yeah.
donating money to us, you get a book out of it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's
that's what
great.
we're doing for some of our startup, and we're hoping to be open by Independent Bookstore Day in April of 2026 is what we're
Wow.
shooting for. I'm a little more impatient and a little more do it now
Yeah.
type person, but
Yeah,
we
yeah.
wanna make sure we do it right so that we can be successful. So
And it's
we're
gonna be a
really
physical location? Or is
Yes,
it on
yes. It's actually gonna be a physical location. Our community here has been very supportive, the business community. Our mayor is doing a lot of updating and growth in the little small town near here, and,
Yeah.
I actually talked to him at a volunteer event. I was at a fundraiser and talked to him, and
Mhm.
I said, "What do you think about a bookstore downtown?" And he goes, "Oh, I like that idea." He says, "That building right over there, that's where you need to be." So that's the building we're looking at.
That's
So,
wonderful, wonderful. That
yeah.
sounds exciting. That sounds great,
Mhm.
especially that you're focusing on self-published authors because, it's hard to get books into traditional bookstores.
It
So,
is.
the Barnes& and Nobles and all that, if you're self-published, it's a lot harder. I mean, you can do it, but it's not an easy thing. So,
No, it's not easy at all.
no, no, no.
It's
So that's
not. So we
wonderful.
wanna do that. So I've reached out to several of my fellow independent published authors, and we've
Yeah,
got a list of people that we hope to
wonderful.
feature.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, well, one of the other things I wanted to ask you about was that you use your time and your resources to contribute to community events, and just like you're saying now. But a few things that you mentioned on your website is mental health awareness, domestic violence, and heroin issues. So, can you tell me about what is it that you do, or that you how you like to support people that need help?
Well, I work in human resources, and since the opioid epidemic, I've had a lot of employees with issues who've come through struggling
Mm,
that needed help. So
yeah,
what I've done is I've reached out to various community resources. So if somebody comes to me and says, "Hey, I have a problem," I'm gonna try
yeah.
to help them get the help that they need. So a lot of that's done through my work.
Hmm.
I am getting ready to retire here, maybe within the next 14 months, 3 days, 2
Yeah,
days, and when I do that, then I'm going to be able to devote a little bit more time to actually doing some hands-on stuff. But
that's
right now, I've volunteered for a cancer walk, but that's all been through my work,
mhm,
my human resource career.
okay.
I'm hoping to be able to, once we open the bookstore, to be able to do some more stuff to give back to the
Yeah.
community that way.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. That's great. Because yeah, I mean, we have a lot of issues right now with mental health issues, and I think people do need help, and it's great, to be able to help each other, not have to rely on
That's what
the
we're here
government or anything
for.
else.
That's
Yeah,
what we're
yeah,
here for, to kinda hold
yeah,
each other up.
yeah. That's fantastic. Good for you. That's wonderful. Okay, so if you were to mentor a new writer, what would be three pieces of advice that you would give them? And it sounds like you're about to do that with your store. So,
That yeah. Um, First of all, I'm gonna tell him. just sit down and write the book. I've got a couple friends who have said, I really want to write a book. I said, so why aren't you doing it? If you really want to
Right.
do it, just do
Yep.
it.
Right.
And I tell you, I went to Romance Writers of America, one of their conventions in San
Right.
Antonio back in, I want to say maybe 2013 or 2014. And that was one of the questions that was posed to Nora Roberts in a panel discussion that I was so excited. I had Nora Roberts and Jane Ann Krentz right there in the room with me, so I was really
Oh,
excited.
wow.
And that was that I'm not gonna say what Nora said because she used a bad word, but she said somebody asked her, "What would you tell somebody?" She says, "Just sit down and write."
Yeah.
So, don't give up, don't give up. If you got a story you wanna tell, sit down and write it, handwrite it, type it out, whatever you wanna do, and then let somebody read it. Uh, tell somebody you're writing a book because then
Yeah.
you get encouragement and somebody stands there behind you and says, "I thought you were gonna write a book. Why aren't you
Mhm.
where are you at on
Right.
this book writing thing?" I had a friend that did that for me, that when he had read a couple poems that I had written, and he says, "Why aren't you writing a book?" And he gave me a book idea. So I sat down and wrote 2 chapters that night and sent them to him. He says, "My God, why aren't you writing a book?" So he kept at me.
Yeah.
So I you wanna tell a friend that you're writing a book so that that friend will put the occasional shove to your back and make you go through with it. And don't ever feel like you can't. Have
Right. Right.
confidence. Don't ever feel like you can't. Just because you're not an English major or something. I'm not an English major. My major was human resources and social
Yeah.
science in college. Just because you don't have an English degree doesn't mean you can't write a book.
Right.
Well,
Yeah.
I
Well,
guess that's the advice I would give.
yeah, that's
Keep
great
at it till
advice.
you get it done.
Write the book, tell somebody, and have confidence that you can do it, right?
That's
Yeah,
correct. Yes.
that's wonderful. That's wonderful advice. Okay, so let's think 10 years into the future. Once you're retired and you're writing full time and you're running your store, what is the legacy that you want to leave with this body of work that you have produced? How do you want to be
I
remembered?
I want that. Man, that's a hard question, Julia. So, hopefully I make it 10 years, but that's awful. Um, so I would hope that I have left a handprint or something in future writers. I mean, we've gotta have storytellers, not just
Yes.
AI stuff that somebody put in an idea in AI and something got spit out. We need
Yeah.
tellers, people who weave stories. So I hope by with my writing, the bookstore, things like that, I hope that I can inspire a future generation of writers. I guess
That's
that's the
wonderful.
simple thing.
That's great. Yeah. And you're right. You want with AI and all the fake stuff that's out there, we want people to believe that they still can write. They don't need that. They can just
No.
use their own creativity, right? It's just
Oh.
yeah, yeah.
Everybody's got a story to tell.
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. So when someone finishes one of your books, what feeling or thought do you hope that they carry with them?
Well, I hope they sit there and go, "I love that book. Okay, I'm gonna one click the next one in the series," you know?
Yeah, yeah,
I hope they keep
exactly.
on reading, but I really want them to enjoy the book. And I know that not everybody likes the same type of stuff. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not the type. So I would hope that
yeah,
when they read my book, it encourages them to go ahead and read the next one, or maybe even
uh-huh,
go read one of my author friends' books that writes similar to me or not even similar to me. So
yeah,
that's what
yeah.
I hope.
And that's good. Yeah, you wanted them to say, "Wow, that was wonderful. I can't wait to read another one." Right?
Yeah,
So, yeah, yeah. So for what's coming next for you? So you said you have the nonfiction book that you're working on. Are you working on well, you're working on the 4 fiction novels. So those will be out all next year.
hopefully. I do have
No.
one coming out in November, and
Okay.
it's
Okay.
a collection of short stories, and,
Okay.
I'll go ahead and tell about it. So,
Yeah.
I partnered with a group of ladies, and we did some stories called the Hope Harbor stories, and They were all anthologies, there were 3 of them. So I already had 3 stories. All of my stories and they're in and around a town called Hope Harbor, and so
Mm,
all 3 of my stories have a touch of magic to them. Obviously, they're paranormal,
yeah.
they're magic. So I'm writing the 4th short story right now because it's gonna be part of our bookstore anthology, and it's gonna be part of this book that I'm releasing at the end of November, and it's going to be it's called The Magic of Hope Harbor. So it's going to have 4 stories, 4 short stories, all that take place in this town, and I'm going to throw a little bit of extras in there. Like I'm going to do they're witches, they're magic. So I'm going to throw some simmer pot stuff in, how to make a simmer pot, how to make a spell jar, some recipes. So I'm going to toss some stuff in there that's kind of
Yeah.
magical related and maybe some herbal advice and things like that. So it's
Oh,
gonna be
okay.
kind of those stories plus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Very cool. That sounds great. That sounds great. So you and how many other authors?
just this one's just me.
Oh, it's just your book. Oh,
I'm
okay.
taking my 3 stories from the Hope Harbor anthologies, which are now out of print. I'm gonna take
Oh,
those
okay.
3, add a 4th, and then add a little bit of extra, so and The
Wonderful.
Magic of
Wonderful.
Hope Harbor is what it's called. In fact, I've
Okay.
got a cover already,
Oh, good.
so that'll be my 2nd book released this year. I'm not sure if I'll be able to release any of the others. I'm working diligently, but here we are, it's November.
Yeah. It's already the end of the year.
I
So,
know. I may have another one come out in January, but I don't know
wow.
which one it's gonna be because I keep hopping back and forth, so
Well, good, good. Well, we'll definitely feature your November one because this interview is coming out in November, so it'll be
okay,
perfect.
alright.
So, how can readers find you? I know you're on Facebook. Anywhere else where people can
I
contact
have a
you? Or-
website. My website is https www.teresakeeferromance.com. Simple. I do a blog. I try to blog every week. It doesn't always happen that way. So I do have that. I've got my
Okay.
Facebook page. I do have TikTok, but I don't do a lot with it. I don't have time. I might
Yeah,
once I
yeah,
retire, that might be all I do. I might walk out here in the yard and do all these TikTok videos, who knows?
yeah. Make TikTok videos with all your pets.
I could do that. I also have I've got a readers group as well on Facebook, and it's
Oh, okay.
called Books, Broomsticks, and Baubles. And it's a
Oh,
very small group right now, but that's where I'm trying to put stuff as far as I'm trying to encourage some traffic in there because I
yeah,
want that to be like a meetup place for people who like paranormal books.
yeah. That
So
sounds great.
it's called Books, Broomsticks, and Baubles, and, it's on
I'm gonna
Facebook.
look for it, and then I will add the link down at the bottom so that people
Okay,
can just click on it and find it.
perfect, perfect.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun talking to you and learning all about magic and supernatural characters and everything. Wonderful.
Thanks for having me.